Sin, he reflected, is not what it is usually thought to be. It is not to steal and tell lies. Sin is for one man to walk brutally over the life of another, and to be quite oblivious of the wounds he has left behind. Shusakū Endō. This is Father Cory's Book Club, edition 37. Today I am reviewing A Life of Jesus, Iesu no生涯, by Shusakū Endō, originally published in 1973. Ever since the life of Jesus on earth, authors have attempted to tell his story. We primarily think of the evangelists who wrote the four Gospels as those who excelled in telling the story. Along with them came the other apostles and disciples who saw what Jesus did and heard what he said, who contributed to this writing. We do not call the totality of their work a genre of writing so much as we do a divine revelation, since as Catholics we believe that the writings of those first disciples are what constitute for us inspired scripture. Following after them, there was indeed a genre of literature in various forms throughout the centuries that attempted to explain the life of Jesus, based upon the accounts left behind in the Gospels, and at times supplemented by other kinds of sources, lenses through which the life of Jesus may be viewed. Mystics receive private revelations about details of the life of Jesus, about which the Gospels were silent. Great theologians put into context the significance of various things that Jesus said and did. Simple and prayerful men dug deeply into the gospel through their own meditation. At times, the enterprise of explaining and illuminating the life of Jesus has benefited from the skill of various artists of various kinds of artistry, who use their particular talents and emphases to present Jesus to an audience, perhaps previously left in the dark. Shusakū Endō was born in Tokyo in 1923, and after his parents' divorce, he was baptized Catholic at around the age 11 or 12. The confluence of being ethnically and culturally Japanese with being a Catholic would form the entire worldview from which he wrote. His best-known work is the novel Silence, a story of two Jesuit missionaries in the 16th century who sneak back into Japan after the expulsion of their order amidst a persecution of Catholics, seeking to locate their superior and to determine if the rumors of his apostasy are true. A dramatic and at times shocking work, the book forms one of the chief loci of Endō's persistent lament that Japan is a swamp, seemingly unable to allow Christianity to take root due to a variety of historical and cultural factors that make it inhospitable to his own beloved faith. One of his lesser-known works attempts to remedy this. In 1973, he published his own entry into the genre of works which attempt to novelize the events of the story of the Christ, simply titling it A Life of Jesus. His impetus is to make Jesus intelligible to his Japanese countrymen, whose culture, he says, is not one which is very receptive to the Christian conception of God, particularly insofar as they perceive God to be a distant, authoritarian father figure. He uses his skills as a novelist to convey character psychology, to take what is said in the Gospels about the actions of Jesus and his disciples, and to seek to capture their motivations, their feelings, their thoughts as they went about doing what they did and seeing what they did. There are moments in the book where one well-versed in the technical aspects of dogmatic theology will bristle just slightly, as Endō seems to flirt with Christological heresy, almost denying the divinity of Christ. I must confess that upon encountering one of those moments very early on, I nearly quit reading the book myself. But I pressed on, interested to see what I might gain from reading, and I wasn't disappointed. Endō is a masterful novelist, as is evident to those who have read his other work, and so to have a novelist meditating upon what motivates Jesus and his disciples, and what's going through their minds, helps to give us a deeper sense of those personages depicted in the Gospels as real people, not just characters in a story that has become for us too familiar, almost to the point of indifference. An example of this is how clearly Endō depicts the disciples as being entirely unaware as to who Jesus really is until the day of his resurrection. While on some level I knew that intellectually, I knew that they didn't really know who he was, it didn't really occur to me when I'd read the Gospels previously. I was reading my own knowledge onto the disciples, and I knew how the story would go on to end, whereas at the time they were hearing the words of Jesus spoken and seeing the events unfold, they didn't know who he was. Endō brings this into stark relief, along with the uncertainty and anxiety that went along with following Jesus, even though they weren't too sure of who he was. In so doing, he shows us the great faith of the disciples, even if impetuous and a bit foolish in its expression at times. In short, as a novelist, he gives us a portrait of Jesus and the disciples that is far more complex than many others who have attempted similar works in a more meditative fashion. While Endō is not a dogmatic theologian, and the work suffers somewhat when it touches upon those kinds of matters, it's still worth reading so as to gain a deeper appreciation of Jesus and his disciples as real people, who really walked the earth, and who had real human experiences and real human emotions and thoughts just as we do. If you want to get to know better this unfortunately lesser-known author, who not only has been called the Japanese Graham Greene, but whom Greene himself praised as the greatest writer alive, read first his novel Silence to understand his lament over his country, and then read his Life of Jesus to see his masterful response. This has been Father Cory's Book Club, edition 37. Thank you for joining me, and God bless you.